The crystal glass shattered against marble. Michelle didn't flinch. 3 months working for Mafia boss Dexter Fergus taught her that much. Never show fear. Look at me. His voice was deadly quiet. She raised her eyes. He moved closer, predator-like, his gaze dropping to her left hand. What is that? Her mother's ring caught the light. A ring, sir. His jaw clenched. Whose ring? Mine. I'm engaged. Silence exploded between them. Then Dexter's hand caught hers, his thumb brushing the silver band. His eyes turned black with rage. Take it off. No. Take it off. You're mine. You are welcome, my viewers. Thanks for always following up on the channel. Kindly tell us in the comments section the exact time and location you are watching from. We would love to know so we can serve you better. The crystal glass shattered against the marble floor. Michelle Elliott didn't flinch. 3 months of working in Dexter Fergus's penthouse had taught her that much. Never flinch, never cower, never let him see the fear crawling up your spine like cold fingers. She kept her eyes on the shards glittering near her feet, her hands still gripping the silver tray. Look at me. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. That's how she knew he was furious. She lifted her gaze slowly, meeting the storm in his eyes. Dexter stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his tailored black suit absorbing the afternoon light. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things often are. Sharp jawline, dark hair pushed back, and eyes that could strip a person down to their secrets. I said, look at me, Michelle. I am looking at you, Mr. Fergus. Her voice came out steady. Good. He moved toward her with the controlled grace of a predator. Each step is deliberate, measured. She'd seen him move like this before, right before someone disappeared from his employ. Or worse. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and suffocating. His eyes dropped to her left hand. What, he said slowly, is that? Michelle's fingers instinctively curled inward, but it was too late. The thin silver band caught the light, the small pearl sitting modestly on top. Her mother's ring. The only thing she had left of a woman who died believing her daughter would have a better life than this. Scrubbing floors for a man who owned people the way others owned stocks. A ring, sir. His jaw tightened. I can see it's a ring. Whose ring? Mine. Don't play games with me. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back, the tray clattering as she set it on the nearby console table. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, that she'd dare retreat from him. It's an engagement ring, she said, lifting her chin. I'm engaged. The silence that followed was suffocating. Dexter stared at her like she'd just confessed to murder. His hands flexed at his sides, then curled into fists. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. Engaged. Yes. To whom? Michelle's heart hammered against her ribs. She hadn't thought this far ahead when she'd slipped her mother's ring onto her finger this morning, desperate for something, anything, to create distance between her and the way Dexter had started looking at her. The way his gaze lingered too long. The way he'd started finding reasons to be in whatever room she was cleaning. Someone I knew before. Before I came here. Before you came here to work off your father's debt, you mean. His words were precise. Surgical. Before you became mine. I'm not yours, she said, hating how her voice wavered. I work for you. There's a difference. He laughed, a cold, humorless sound that made her skin prickle. Is there? Because the way I see it, Michelle, your father owed me $200,000. He put his life up as collateral. When he died, that debt transferred to you. Everything you are, everything you have, belongs to me until that debt is paid. I've been paying for it, she shot back. Every day for 3 months. Every humiliating task, every 3 months. He stepped closer again, and this time she didn't retreat. Couldn't. Her back hit the wall. You think 3 months of cleaning my floors erases $200,000? His hand rose, and for a terrifying second she thought he might strike her. Instead, his fingers caught her left hand, lifting it between them. His thumb brushed over the ring, and something in his expression shifted. Something raw and unguarded that disappeared as quickly as it came. Take it off. No. Take it off. It was my mother's, she whispered, the truth slipping out before she could stop it. It's all I have left of her. His grip tightened fractionally. I don't care if it belonged to the Queen of England. You don't wear another man's ring under my roof. You don't belong to anyone else while you're paying off your father's sins. I don't belong to you either. Don't you? His face was so close now she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Then why do you look at me the way you do? Why do your hands shake every time I enter a room? Because I'm afraid of you. Liar. What do you think Michelle should do? Take off the ring to survive, or keep it on to protect her heart? Drop your thoughts below. The word hung between them like a blade. Michelle's breath came shallow, her pulse thundering in her ears. Dexter's hand still held hers captive, his thumb now tracing slow, deliberate circles over the ring. The gesture should have been tender. Instead, it felt like a threat. You're afraid, he murmured, his voice dropping to something almost intimate. But not of me. You're afraid of what happens when you stop pretending. His eyes searched hers. Who is he, Michelle? This fiancé of yours. She swallowed hard. That's none of your business. Everything about you is my business. He released her hand abruptly and stepped back, creating space that somehow felt more suffocating than his proximity. What's his name? Silence. Where does he work? More silence. When's the wedding? Michelle's mind raced. She hadn't prepared for an interrogation. The ring was supposed to be a shield, nothing more. A simple lie to create boundaries in a place where she had none. But Dexter wasn't a man who accepted boundaries. He was a man who demolished them. He travels, she finally said. For work. Convenient. Dexter walked to his desk, extracting his phone. Give me his name. I'd like to meet the man who thinks he can marry someone who belongs to me. I told you I don't belong. His name. Each word was punctuated with ice. David, she blurted out, grabbing the first name that came to mind. David Kings. He's overseas right now. Military. Dexter's finger paused over his phone screen. He looked up at her, something calculating shifting behind his eyes. Military. Yes. Which branch? Army. Stationed where? Germany. I think. He doesn't always tell me everything for security reasons. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. Her mother used to say that the truth lived in a person's eyes, that liars always looked away. So Michelle looked directly at Dexter Fergus and prayed he couldn't see through her the way he seemed to see through everyone else. He studied her for a long moment, then set his phone down with deliberate care. You think I'm a fool. Her stomach dropped. I don't. You stand in my home, wearing a ring, spinning fairy tales about a soldier fiancé who's conveniently unreachable, and you think I'm stupid enough to believe it. He moved around the desk, each step purposeful. I've built an empire on reading people, Michelle. On knowing when someone is lying to me. And right now. He stopped in front of her again. You're lying. I'm not. Yes. You are. His hand shot out, catching her chin, tilting her face up to his. The touch was firm but not painful. But here's what fascinates me. Why? Why wear a fake engagement ring? Why invent a phantom fiancé? Her throat constricted. Let go of me. Answer the question. Because men like you don't take no for an answer, she said, the words erupting before she could stop them. Because I've seen the way you look at me. Because I needed something. Anything to make you see me as off limits. The confession seemed to surprise them both. Dexter's grip loosened, but he didn't release her. Instead, something dangerous flickered in his expression. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. So you do know. Know what? That I want you. The words landed like a punch. Michelle tried to step back, but his other hand caught her waist, holding her in place. Not roughly. Almost carefully. Mr. Fergus. Dexter, he corrected. When we're alone, you call me Dexter. This is inappropriate. Inappropriate, he repeated, as if testing the word. What's inappropriate is you walking through my home every day, moving through my space, and pretending you don't feel this too. What's inappropriate is me waiting. Being patient. Letting you settle in, letting you adjust, when what I really want is to stop. Her voice cracked. He did. His hands dropped away, but his eyes remained locked on hers. Take off the ring, Michelle. No. I'm not asking. And I'm not your property, she said, finding strength somewhere in her terror. You want to know the truth? Fine. The ring was my mother's. She died when I was 16. My father gambled away everything she left me. Her jewelry, her savings, even her wedding dress. But I hid this. She held up her hand, the silver band catching the light. It's the only piece of her I have left. So no, I won't take it off. Not for you. Not for anyone. The vulnerability in her admission seemed to shift something in the room. Dexter stared at the ring, then at her face, and for just a moment, a fleeting, impossible moment, something almost like regret crossed his features. Then it vanished. You have until tonight, he said quietly. Either the ring comes off, or you do. Your choice. He walked past her, leaving her trembling against the wall, the weight of his ultimatum crushing the air from her lungs. Michelle didn't take off the ring. She told herself it was about principle. About the last shred of dignity she had left in a situation that had stolen everything else. But as she moved through the penthouse that evening, dusting surfaces that didn't need dusting, reorganizing shelves that were already perfect, she knew the truth. The ring was a lifeline. Remove it, and she'd be exposed. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 8. Her shift should have ended an hour ago, but she deliberately stretched out her tasks, avoiding the inevitable confrontation. Dexter hadn't emerged from his office since their encounter that afternoon, but she could feel his presence like a storm waiting to break. She was polishing the banister near the staircase when his voice cut through the silence. Still here. Michelle's hand froze mid-stroke. She turned slowly. Dexter stood at the top of the stairs, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked more dangerous like this, less polished, more predatory. I was just finishing. You were avoiding me. He descended the stairs with that same measured grace, each step bringing him closer. The ring, Michelle. I don't see it on the entry table where I expected to find it. She tucked her left hand behind her back instinctively. I made my choice. Did you? He reached the bottom step, now eye level with her. So you're leaving then? Quitting? Walking away from your father's debt? The words hit like ice water. That's not what I. Those were your options. Ring off or you're gone. He tilted his head, studying her. Unless you'd like to renegotiate. Something in his tone made her skin prickle. Renegotiate how? I'm a businessman. Michelle. Everything is negotiable. He moved past her into the sitting room, pouring himself a glass of whiskey from the crystal decanter. Your father owed me $200,000. At your current rate of repayment, let's call it minimum wage for housekeeping services, you'll be working for me for the next 8 years. 8 years. The number settled over her like a life sentence. Unless, Dexter continued, swirling the amber liquid, we restructure the arrangement. I'm listening. She hated how desperate she sounded. Move in. Full-time. Not just as staff, as a companion. The word landed softly, but its implications were sharp. Michelle's jaw tightened. You mean a mistress? I mean, he said carefully, someone who lives here. Keeps me company. Joins me for dinners, events. Play the part when I need someone on my arm. He took a sip of whiskey. In exchange, I'll wipe out your debt entirely. And what else would I have to do? Her voice was brittle. To earn my freedom? His eyes darkened. Nothing you don't want to. I don't believe you. Smart girl. He set down his glass. But I'm not lying. I don't take what isn't offered, Michelle. I've never had to. The arrogance in his statement was infuriating and probably true. What I'm proposing is transactional. Clean. You give me your time, your presence. I give you your life back. My presence, she repeated. Like a pet. A possession. Like a partner. We both know that's a lie. Dexter's expression hardened. Then make your choice. Keep your ring, walk out that door, and spend the next decade looking over your shoulder wondering when I'll call in the debt another way. Or take the deal. Michelle's mind raced. Moving in meant surrendering the last barrier between them. It meant proximity, intimacy, even if just performative. It meant falling deeper into his world with no guarantee of escape. But 8 years of servitude? 8 years of living in fear, of scraping by, of watching her life disappear into the black hole her father had created? I need time to think. You've had all day. One night, she pressed. Let me sleep on it. Give me until tomorrow morning. Dexter studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Tomorrow morning. 7 a.m. You'll give me your answer, and if it's no, you'll leave this penthouse and never return. And the debt. His smile was cold. I'll find other ways to collect. I always do. The threat wasn't subtle, but Michelle forced herself to nod. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Michelle. She looked back. That ring. His eyes fixed on her hand. Your mother's ring. Did she love your father? The question startled her. Yes, I think so. In the beginning, at least. And at the end? Michelle's throat tightened. In the end, she loved him enough to stay. Even when staying, it destroyed her. Something flickered across Dexter's face, something almost like pain. But when he spoke, his voice was even. Don't make your mother's mistakes. She left without responding, the weight of his words following her into the night. If you were Michelle, would you take Dexter's deal or risk walking away? Let us know what you'd do. Michelle didn't go home that night. She couldn't. The apartment she shared with 2 other women, a cramped, moldy space in a building where the heat rarely worked, felt too far away. Too exposed. Dexter's words had planted a seed of paranoia. I'll find other ways to collect. Instead, she found herself at the only place that had ever felt safe, St. Catherine's Church, where her mother used to take her every Sunday before the world fell apart. The chapel was empty at this hour, lit only by rows of votive candles flickering in red glass holders. Michelle slid into a back pew, her mother's ring catching the candlelight. She'd never been particularly religious, but something about this place steadied her breathing. "Thought I'd find you here." Her head snapped up. Dexter stood in the aisle, hands in his pockets, looking entirely out of place in the sacred space. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater, the most casual she'd ever seen him, but he still carried that aura of controlled power. "How did you?" Michelle's voice died. Of course he knew. He probably had people following her. Men like Dexter Fergus always did. "You have a routine," he said simply, sliding into the pew beside her. "Too close. Sundays, you come here at noon. Light 3 candles. Sit for exactly 20 minutes. I assumed in crisis, you'd return to what's familiar." The casual surveillance should have terrified her. Instead, she felt oddly numb. "Are you here to drag me back?" "Force my answer early." "No." He leaned back, stretching his arm along the top of the pew behind her. "I'm here because you shouldn't be alone right now. This neighborhood isn't safe at night." "Safer than being alone with you." He laughed quietly. "Fair." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unsaid things pressing down. Then, 3 candles. Mother, father, someone else. Michelle's fingers tightened around the ring. "Mother, father, and my brother." Something shifted in Dexter's posture. "You have a brother?" "Had." The word tasted like ash. "David. He was 6 when he died. Pneumonia. We couldn't afford the hospital bills, so my father just watched him struggle to breathe. Watched him fade." She stared at the altar ahead. "That's when the gambling started. Dad said he was trying to win enough to pay off David's medical debt." "But really?" "He was just trying to outrun the guilt." "And your mother?" "Broke. Just broke. She lasted 3 more years before her heart gave out. The doctor said it was a congenital defect, but I knew better." Michelle turned to look at Dexter fully. She died of grief. Of watching everything she loved crumble while pretending it was fine. Dexter's jaw worked, but he said nothing. "So yes," Michelle continued, "I wear her ring. Because she deserved better than what life gave her. Better than my father. Better than dying in a house that smelled like whiskey and broken promises." Her voice cracked. "And I promised myself I'd never become her. Never love someone so much that losing them destroys me." "Is that why you're resisting?" Dexter asked quietly. "You think I'll destroy you?" "I think you already are." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Dexter turned to face her fully, and in the candlelight, his features looked softer. Younger. Almost vulnerable. "I don't want to destroy you, Michelle." "Then what do you want?" He hesitated, the first time she'd ever seen him unsure of his words. "I want." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding through his usual composure. "I don't know. That's the problem. I've wanted a lot of things in my life. Money, power, respect, fear. I've acquired all of it. But you." His eyes found hers. "You make me want something I don't have a name for." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." A door creaked somewhere in the church, the priest probably locking up for the night. Neither of them moved. "Come back with me," Dexter said finally. "Not because I'm demanding it. Not because of the debt. Come back because it's cold, and you're exhausted, and you shouldn't be sleeping in a church pew trying to outrun your demons." "What about tomorrow morning?" "My answer. Tomorrow morning can wait." He stood, extending his hand. "Tonight, just let me get you somewhere warm." Michelle stared at his outstretched palm. Everything in her screamed to refuse, to maintain distance, to protect the fragile wall she'd built. But she was so tired. So desperately tired. Against every instinct, she placed her hand in his. The drive back to the penthouse was silent. But when they arrived, Dexter didn't lead her to the staff quarters. He led her to a guest room on the second floor, spacious, elegant, with a fireplace already crackling. "The bathroom's through there," he said, gesturing. "There's clothes in the dresser if you need them. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer." He turned to leave, but Michelle's voice stopped him. "Dexter." He looked back. "Thank you." Something unreadable crossed his face. "Don't thank me yet." Michelle woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then the silk sheets, the fireplace reduced to embers, the faint scent of expensive cologne clinging to the borrowed clothes she'd worn to bed, it all came rushing back. Dexter's penthouse. The guest room. The impossible choice is still hanging over her head. She checked the bedside clock. 6:47 a.m. 13 minutes until her deadline. Her heart hammered as she dressed quickly in yesterday's clothes, her mother's ring still firmly on her finger. Whatever answer she gave, she'd face it head-on. No more running. But when she descended the stairs, she found the penthouse eerily quiet. No Dexter in the dining room. No sounds from his office. Just silence and the faint aroma of coffee. She followed the scent to the kitchen, and stopped cold. Dexter stood at the island, still in sleep-rumpled clothes, staring at something in his hands. Papers. Photographs. His expression was so raw, so unguarded, that Michelle nearly backed away. This wasn't the calculated Mafia boss who'd issued ultimatums. This was someone drowning in memory. Dexter. He looked up sharply, and for a split second, she saw devastation in his eyes before the mask slammed back into place. He moved to gather the papers, but Michelle was faster. Her hand shot out, catching a photograph before he could hide it. A little girl. Maybe 7 or 8, with dark curls and a smile that could light the world. She wore a pink dress and held a stuffed rabbit, her small hand clutching someone's finger just out of frame. "Who is she?" Michelle's voice came out barely above a whisper. Dexter's jaw clenched. "No one. Liar." She turned the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, Lily, age 7. Central Park, May 2019. "Give it back." His voice was strained. Instead, Michelle picked up another photograph from the scattered pile. Same girl. Older now. Maybe 9. Standing beside a woman with kind eyes and dark skin, both of them laughing at something off camera. Michelle's breath caught. The woman's face. She knew that face. This is... She looked up at Dexter, pieces clicking into horrible place. This is Keisha Morales. The woman who was murdered 3 years ago. It was all over the news. Everyone said it was a rival gang, retaliation for... Stop. The word cracked like a whip. But Michelle couldn't stop. Her mind raced through news reports, whispered rumors in the neighborhoods where Dexter's name carried weight. Keisha Morales, a social worker who'd been gunned down outside her daughter's school. The daughter who'd vanished afterward, presumed dead. Lily was her daughter, Michelle said slowly. Your daughter. She wasn't mine. Dexter's voice was hollow. Not biologically. Keisha and I. We were together for 4 years. Lily was 3 when we met. I raised her. Read to her every night. Taught her to ride a bike. She called me, his voice broke. She called me Dad. Michelle's heart fractured at the grief bleeding through his words. They were supposed to be protected, he continued, staring at nothing. I had men watching them. 24/7. But Viktor Kozlov wanted to hurt me. and he knew the only way to do it was through them. His hands trembled. They shot Keisha in front of the school. Lily ran. They chased her into an alley and... "Stop," Michelle whispered. "You don't have to." They never found her body. His eyes finally met hers, and the anguish there was suffocating. "Everyone assumed she was dead. Disposed of. But I searched for 2 years. Hired investigators, called in every favor, burned through millions. Nothing. It's like she vanished into smoke." Michelle looked down at the photographs again, at the little girl's bright smile, and understanding crashed over her. "That's why you reacted the way you did. To my ring. To me pretending to be engaged." Dexter's laugh was bitter. "Keisha wore a ring too. Not an engagement ring. Her mother's wedding band. She never took it off, and said it reminded her where she came from." He gestured vaguely at Michelle. "When I saw yours yesterday, for a second I thought..." He cut himself off, shaking his head. "Stupid. It's not stupid. It is. You're nothing like her. You're..." He stopped, something vulnerable flickering across his face. "You're exactly like her. Stubborn. Fierce. Wearing armor made of memories because it's the only thing keeping you standing." Michelle set the photographs down carefully. "Is that why you want me here? Because I remind you of what you lost?" "No." His voice was firm. "I want you here because when I look at you, I remember what it feels like to want to protect something. To care about whether someone eats, sleeps, survives the day." He stepped closer. "Keisha's been gone for 3 years. Lily's been gone 3 years. And in all that time, I've been empty. Just going through motions. Building empires I don't care about. Destroying enemies who don't matter. Until your father put you up as collateral 6 months ago." His hand rose, hovering near her face but not touching. "Until I saw you walk into my office, terrified but trying not to show it. Until I realized I'd been waiting for you without knowing it." The confession should have felt manipulative, calculated. But the raw honesty in his eyes told a different story. 7 a.m., Michelle said quietly, glancing at the clock. "You wanted my answer." Dexter's expression shuttered. "I did." She twisted her mother's ring, feeling its familiar weight. Then, slowly, deliberately, she pulled it off her finger. His breath caught. But instead of handing it to him, Michelle slipped it onto her right hand. "I'll stay. Not as your mistress. Not as your companion. As..." She searched for the right word. "As someone figuring out what this is. What we are. But on my terms. Your terms. I keep my own room. I come and go as I please. And you tell me the truth. Always. About your business, your past, about..." She gestured to the photographs. "About her. About all of it." Dexter stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his entire face. "Deal." The next 2 weeks unfolded like a fever dream. Michelle moved into the guest room officially, her few possessions looking sparse against the room's luxury. But Dexter kept his word. He didn't push, didn't demand, didn't cross the invisible line she'd drawn between them. Instead, he did something far more dangerous. He let her in. It started small. Morning coffee together before his meetings, where he'd ask about her plans for the day. Dinners at the long dining table, where conversations shifted from stilted small talk to genuine exchanges. He told her about his childhood in Brooklyn, raised by a single mother who cleaned houses to keep him fed. About the first time he'd taken a life, a dealer who'd tried to recruit his younger cousin, and how that night had changed everything. "I didn't feel guilty," he admitted one evening, swirling wine in his glass. That's what scared me. I felt powerful. Like I'd finally found something I was good at. Michelle listened, watching firelight play across his features. Do you feel guilty now? For that one? No. He deserved it. Dexter's eyes met hers. But there have been others. People who were just in the wrong place. Who made mistakes that didn't warrant death. He paused. I feel guilty about those. Then why continue? Because stopping doesn't erase what I've done. And in this world, showing weakness gets you killed. He set down his glass. But lately, I've been wondering if there's a way out. A way to step back without losing everything. Is there? I don't know. But for the first time in years, I want to find out. The vulnerability in his admission made Michelle's chest ache. 3 days later, Michelle was reading in the library when Dexter appeared in the doorway, looking almost nervous. I have something to show you, he said. If you're willing. He led her to a room she'd never entered. His private study, locked and off-limits even to household staff. Inside, the walls were covered with maps, photographs, and documents. A dedicated investigation board dominated one side. Strings connecting images and locations. This is everything I have on Lily, Dexter said quietly. Every lead, every dead end, every possible sighting. His finger traced a route across a map. The last credible report was 18 months ago. A girl matching her description in a trafficking ring in Baltimore. By the time I got there, she was gone. Michelle's throat tightened. You've never stopped looking. I can't. She's out there, Michelle. I know she is. I can feel it. His voice cracked. She'd be 12 now. Almost 13. I don't even know if she'd remember me. Without thinking, Michelle reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately. Desperately. Tell me about her, she said softly. Not the search. Just her. Who was she? Dexter's eyes grew distant, but warmer. Obsessed with dinosaurs. Had every book, every toy. Used to correct adults about proper paleontological terms. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She wanted to be a paleontologist when she grew up. Said she'd discover a new species and name it after her mom. She sounds incredible. She was. He pulled out a worn notebook from a drawer, opening to a page filled with childish handwriting and crayon drawings. She made me a Father's Day card the year before. Before everything. I wasn't even officially her father, but she didn't care. Michelle read the card over his shoulder. Dear Dad, you're the best because you make the monsters go away. Love. Lily. I failed her, Dexter whispered. The one job I had, keeping the monsters away, and I failed. You didn't fail her. Viktor Kozlov failed humanity. The men who worked for him failed every moral code. But you. Michelle squeezed his hand. You've spent 3 years and millions of dollars refusing to give up. That's not failure. That's love. Dexter turned to her, and the look in his eyes was so intense it stole her breath. How do you do that? Do what? Make me believe I'm not completely broken. Before Michelle could respond, he closed the distance between them. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Tell me to stop, he murmured. Tell me this is a bad idea, and I'll walk away. Michelle's heart pounded. Every rational thought screamed that this was dangerous, complicated, impossible. But when she looked into Dexter's eyes, she didn't see a mafia boss or a killer. She saw a man drowning in grief, reaching for anything that might save him. She saw herself reflected back. I'm not telling you to stop, she whispered. He kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been suffocating for years. Michelle melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, all her careful boundaries dissolving. The kiss was desperate and tender, hungry and reverent, everything they'd been holding back spilling over. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dexter pressed his forehead to hers. "I don't deserve you," he said roughly. "Probably not," Michelle agreed, a shaky laugh escaping. "But maybe we don't get what we deserve. Maybe we get what we're brave enough to reach for." That night, for the first time since moving in, Michelle fell asleep in Dexter's arms in his bed, her mother's ring on the nightstand beside them. For the first time in 3 years, Dexter slept without nightmares. For the first time in their lives, neither of them felt alone. The call came at 3 a.m. Michelle woke to Dexter's phone vibrating violently on the nightstand, his body going rigid beside her. He answered without looking at the caller ID, his voice instantly alert. "What?" She couldn't hear the response, but she watched his expression transform. Shock, then something that looked like hope and terror colliding. "Where?" His hand gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. "Are you certain?" "No. No, I'm coming now. Don't move until I get there." He was out of bed before Michelle could speak, pulling on clothes with frantic efficiency. "Dexter, what's wrong?" "They found her." His voice shook. "They found Lily." Michelle's heart stopped. "What? Where?" "A shelter in Philadelphia. A girl matching her description, the right age." "She—" He stopped, closing his eyes. "She has a scar on her left shoulder. From when she fell off her bike when she was 6. The shelter director saw it during a medical exam." "Oh my God!" Michelle scrambled out of bed. "I'm coming with you." "No." The word was sharp. Final. "Dexter." "I said no, Michelle. This is... I need to do this alone. I need to." He ran both hands through his hair, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked completely lost. What if it's her? What if it's not? What if she doesn't remember me? What if she hates me for not finding her sooner? Michelle crossed to him, gripping his shoulders. "Then you deal with it. Together. Let me come with you. Let me help." "I can't." He pulled away from her touch. "I can't think straight right now. I can't be what you need and what she needs simultaneously. I need space." The rejection stung, but Michelle forced herself to understand. "Okay. Okay, go. But call me when you know something. Please." He nodded curtly and left without another word. Hours passed. 6. Then 8. Michelle's calls went to voicemail. Her texts remained unread. By noon, panic had settled into her bones. She called Gerald, Dexter's right-hand man, but he was as in the dark as she was. Boss took off alone. Didn't want security. Didn't want backup. Said he needed to handle this personally. By evening, Michelle's worry had morphed into something else. Anger. How dare he shut her out after everything they'd shared? After she'd opened herself up, trusted him with her pain, her history? She was pacing the living room when she heard the front door open. Dexter walked in looking like he'd been through war. His clothes were disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. But it was his expression that made Michelle's stomach drop. Devastation mixed with something dark and ugly. "Was it her?" Michelle asked, her voice barely steady. "No." The word came out flat. "Dead. Wrong scar. Wrong eye color up close. Just another ghost. Another false hope." "Dexter, I'm so sorry." "Don't." He moved past her to the bar, pouring whiskey with shaking hands. "Just don't. Talk to me. Let me help. Help." He laughed bitterly, downing the drink in one swallow. "You want to help? Then go. Leave. This was a mistake. Michelle felt like she'd been slapped. What? As this. He gestured vaguely between them. I thought. Another bitter laugh. I thought maybe I could have something normal. Something good. But every time I look at you, I'm reminded that I'm searching for a ghost while pretending I can build a life. That's grief talking. No, that's reality talking. He poured another drink. You want to know what I realized sitting in that shelter, looking at that girl who wasn't Lily? I realized I've been using you. As a distraction. As a placeholder for feelings I can't process. And you've been using me too, as an escape from your father's debt, from your own guilt about not saving your family. The words hit like bullets. That's not true. Isn't it? His eyes were cold now, the warmth she'd come to know completely absent. Be honest, Michelle. Would you be here if you weren't paying off a debt? Would you have looked at me twice if circumstances were different? I don't know, she admitted, tears burning her eyes. Maybe not at first. But that's not why I'm here now. Then why are you here? He challenged. Because you love me? Because you think you can fix me? Save me from myself. He moved closer, his voice dropping to something cruel. I'm not a redemption project, Michelle. I'm a killer. A criminal. A man who's destroyed more lives than he's saved. And you're just a girl playing dress-up in a world you don't understand, wearing your dead mother's ring like armor. The mention of her mother's ring, the deliberate cruelty of it, shattered something in Michelle. You're right, she said, her voice trembling with rage and hurt. I don't understand your world. I don't understand how someone can claim to care about people and then push them away the moment things get hard. I don't understand how you can kiss me like I matter and then treat me like I'm nothing. She turned toward the stairs, but his voice stopped her. Where are you going? To pack. You want me gone? Fine. I'm gone. But you don't get to summon me back when the loneliness gets too heavy. You don't get to use me as your emotional crutch anymore. Michelle. We're done, Dexter. She walked away, leaving him standing in the wreckage of what they'd built. Michelle lasted 3 days in her old apartment before the walls started closing in. 3 days of her roommates tiptoeing around her obvious heartbreak. 3 days of staring at her mother's ring and wondering if Dexter had been right, if she'd been using him as much as he'd used her. 3 days of replaying their last conversation, trying to pinpoint the exact moment love had curdled into cruelty. On the 4th day, Gerald showed up at her door. He's falling apart, Gerald said without preamble. He hasn't eaten. He hasn't slept. Locked himself in that study of his with all those pictures and maps. That's not my problem anymore, Michelle said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Gerald's expression was unreadable. Look, I've worked for Dexter for 8 years. I've seen him order executions without blinking. I've seen him torture information out of people. But I've never seen him cry. He paused. Until yesterday. Michelle's resolve wavered. He said terrible things. He was scared, Gerald interrupted. Terrified. Do you know what it does to a man like him to feel hope after 3 years of nothing? And then have it ripped away? He lashed out because you're the only person who's gotten close enough to hurt. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't. But maybe it makes it understandable. Gerald pulled an envelope from his jacket. He wanted me to give you this. Said you deserve to know the truth before you decide anything. Michelle took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single document. A legal release form, stamped and notarized. Debt forgiveness for Michelle Elliott. Full amount. $200,000. All claims relinquished effective immediately. It was dated the day after she'd agreed to stay. Before they'd kissed. Before everything had fallen apart. "He freed you weeks ago," Gerald said quietly. "Didn't tell you because he was afraid you'd leave if you knew you weren't obligated anymore. He wanted you to stay because you wanted to, not because you had to." Michelle's hands shook. "Why didn't he tell me?" "Same reason he pushed you away. Fear makes people stupid, and Dexter's more afraid of losing you than he's ever been of anything in his life." Gerald turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. He's planning something tonight. Won't tell me what, but I know that look. It's the look he had before he went after Kozlov. The look that says he's done playing it safe." After Gerald left, Michelle sat alone with the document, her mother's ring, and a choice that would define everything. She found Dexter in his study at midnight, exactly where Gerald said he'd be. He didn't look up when she entered, too focused on the map in front of him, red circles marking locations across 3 states. "There's a trafficking ring operating out of Newark," he said without preamble, his voice hoarse. "I've been tracking them for months. They move girls every 6 weeks. Tomorrow night, they're moving a new shipment." He finally looked at her, and his eyes were haunted. "I'm going to hit them. Tear the whole operation apart. And I don't care if I die doing it." Dexter! She could be there, Michelle. Or she could be in the next shipment, or the one after that. But I can't sit here anymore doing nothing. I can't keep hiring investigators and waiting for phone calls that destroy me. I need to act. Michelle moved closer, studying the map. The plan was suicide. One man against an organized trafficking network. "You'll get yourself killed. Probably. And what about your empire? Your business? Everything you've built? It doesn't matter without her." His voice broke. "Nothing matters without her." Michelle took a deep breath. "Then I'm coming with you." His head snapped up. "Absolutely not. You don't get to make that choice anymore. I'm not your employee. I'm not your obligation." She set the debt forgiveness document on his desk. "I'm someone who cares about you enough to not let you die alone on a suicide mission." Dexter stared at the document, then at her. "You were never supposed to see that." "I know. Just like I was never supposed to matter to you. Just like you were never supposed to matter to me." She pulled her mother's ring off her right hand and placed it beside the document. "But here's the truth, Dexter. I'm terrified of becoming my mother. Of loving someone so much that losing them destroys me. But I'm more terrified of being so scared that I never love at all." "Michelle. Let me finish." Her voice was firm. "You hurt me. You said cruel things because you were scared and grieving and didn't know how to process hope turning into disappointment. And yes, part of me wants to walk away and protect myself." She moved around the desk until she stood directly in front of him. "But I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been if I'd been brave enough to stay." Dexter stood slowly, his hands hovering near her face like he was afraid she'd disappear if he touched her. "I don't deserve you. We've established that." She managed a watery smile. "But maybe love isn't about deserving. Maybe it's about choosing each other even when it's terrifying. Even when it's complicated. Even when the odds are impossible." "I'm still going after that trafficking ring," he said quietly. "I know. And I'm still going to search for Lily. For as long as it takes. I know that too. And there's a very real chance I'll never find her. That I'll spend the rest of my life chasing a ghost." Michelle cupped his face in her hands. "Then chase your ghost. But don't do it alone anymore. Let me help you. Let me be there when the calls come. Let me hold you when the disappointment hits. Let me—" her voice cracked. "Let me love you, Dexter. even if it's messy and complicated and terrifying. He kissed her then, desperate and reverent, like she was salvation and damnation wrapped in one. When they broke apart, both were crying. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her lips. "I'm so sorry for what I said. You're not a distraction or a placeholder. You're—" He pulled back to look at her fully. "You're the first real thing I've felt since I lost them. And that scared me more than any bullet ever could." "I'm scared too," Michelle admitted. "But I'm here anyway." The raid happened on a cold November night. But it wasn't just Dexter and Michelle walking into danger. When word spread about Dexter's plan, something unexpected happened. His entire organization mobilized. Men who'd worked for him for years, who'd only ever known him as a boss, stepped forward. Gerald coordinated with law enforcement contacts, cutting deals and providing information in exchange for immunity. Intelligence flowed in from sources across the state. What had started as a suicide mission became a coordinated strike. Michelle watched from the command center, an abandoned warehouse 2 blocks from the trafficking ring's headquarters, as teams moved into position. Dexter had tried one last time to convince her to stay away, but she'd refused. If this was his mission, it was hers too. "All teams ready," Gerald said into his comm. He glanced at Dexter. "It's your call, boss." Dexter squeezed Michelle's hand once, then nodded. "Execute." The operation took 17 minutes. 17 minutes of controlled chaos as Dexter's men swept through the building, coordinating with federal agents who'd been waiting for solid evidence. 17 minutes that freed 32 girls from hell. Girls ranging from 9 to 17, from 12 different countries. But Lily wasn't among them. Michelle saw the hope drain from Dexter's face as each girl was brought out, and none of them were the one he'd been searching for. By the time the building was cleared, he looked hollowed out. "Boss," Gerald called out, approaching carefully. "There's something you need to see." They followed him to a makeshift office in the building's basement. Computers lined the walls, file cabinets overflowing with documents. Gerald handed Dexter a ledger. "These are transport records. They've been moving girls through a network of safe houses." He pointed to an entry dated 2 months prior. "This one. LM, age 12, relocated to secondary facility, Portland." Dexter's hands trembled. LM Lily Morales. "Could be coincidence," Gerald cautioned. "Could be another girl with the same initials. Or it could be her." Michelle gripped Dexter's arm. "Either way, it's a lead. A real one." For the first time that night, something like hope flickered in Dexter's eyes. 3 months later, Michelle stood in the arrivals terminal at Portland International Airport, her hand clasped tightly in Dexter's. They'd spent weeks coordinating with authorities, following the trail from the ledger. It had led to a foster home in the suburbs, a legitimate one, where a girl named Lily Martinez had been placed after being rescued from a trafficking situation 18 months prior. The name was wrong. The story had gaps. But the age was right. And the scar on her left shoulder matched. "She might not be ready to see you," the social worker had warned. "She's been through trauma. Her memories of her life before are fragmented. We need to go slow." Slow. Dexter had agreed, though Michelle knew it was killing him. Now they waited, watching passengers stream through the gate. The social worker had arranged for Lily to fly down with a trauma counselor for an initial meeting. Low pressure. No expectations. "There," Dexter breathed. A girl emerged from the crowd, thin, guarded, with dark curls pulled into a ponytail. She looked older than 12, the way trauma ages children. Her eyes scanned the crowd warily, the body language of someone who'd learned not to trust. Then her gaze landed on Dexter. She stopped walking. The trauma counselor beside her said something, But the girl didn't seem to hear. She just stared at Dexter, her expression cycling through confusion, recognition, disbelief. Dad! The word was barely audible across the terminal, but Michelle heard it. Felt Dexter's entire body go rigid beside her. Then Lily ran. She crashed into Dexter with enough force to nearly knock him over, her arms wrapping around him as sobs tore from her throat. Dad! 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 She repeated it like a prayer, like she couldn't believe he was real. Dexter collapsed to his knees, holding her like she might vanish, his own sobs shaking his entire frame. Lily! My Lily! I've got you. I've got you. You're safe now. You're safe. Michelle stood back, tears streaming down her face as she watched the reunion. The other travelers gave them space, some pulling out phones, others just watching with wet eyes. The trauma counselor approached Michelle quietly. I wasn't sure this would work. She hasn't responded to anything in months. Wouldn't talk about her past, wouldn't engage. But the moment she saw him, love doesn't forget, Michelle said softly. Even when everything else does. 6 months after that, Michelle sat in Dexter's study, their study now, reviewing applications for the foundation they'd started. The Lily Morales Foundation, dedicated to finding missing children and supporting trafficking survivors. Dexter had stepped back from most of his criminal enterprises, using his connections and resources for something that mattered. It was slow work, dangerous work, but it was right. Lily was in therapy 3 times a week, slowly healing. She had good days and hard days. Some nights she woke up screaming. Other nights she'd pad into their room just to make sure Dexter was still there. But she was home. She was safe. She was rebuilding. A knock on the study door pulled Michelle from her thoughts. Lily peeked in, older now at 13, but with some of that brightness returning to her eyes. Michelle? Dad said you might help me with my science project. Michelle smiled. Of course. What's the topic? Paleontology. Lily grinned, the first real grin Michelle had seen from her. I want to discover a new dinosaur species someday. Name it after my mom. Michelle's throat tightened. I think that's a perfect plan. As Lily settled at the desk, pulling out books and notes, Dexter appeared in the doorway. He leaned against the frame, watching his daughter with an expression of wonder, like he still couldn't believe she was real. His eyes met Michelle's, and in them, she saw gratitude, love, and something that looked like peace. She touched her mother's ring, now back on her left hand, but accompanied by a different ring. The engagement ring Dexter had given her 2 months ago, with a simple question. Will you help me build something real? She'd said yes. Because she'd learned that sometimes the cage you build to protect yourself does become a trap. But sometimes, if you're brave enough, you find someone willing to unlock it with you. Someone who understands that healing isn't about forgetting the pain, but about choosing to love anyway. Someone who makes you believe in second chances. In redemption. In unexpected love that arrives when you've stopped looking for it, wearing the face of a complicated broken man who taught you that strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about finding someone worth putting yourself back together for. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your heart and taking a leap of faith on love? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it.